Welcome back, everyone. This is GTA Failer. Welcome to True 100% Paramedic, or at least that's how it feels to me right now. All paramedic all the time in these last four videos, but this is the last paramedic video for a while anyway. So here's one more failed attempt for you. All of the fails that I showed in the last video culminated with my attempt last night, where I failed on the 78th and final passenger on level 12. And then I tried again this morning and got this fail here. I think I'm going to try to clip into a Colombian on the left and then accidentally clip into a pole and some water. So my morning got off to a GTA failing start. Decided to just start right up again. So we're going to show you the entirety of this particular attempt at paramedic in double speed. So that's what you're watching right now. Okay, and so in this video, I think I just reset to try to get a closer first spawn, and then we'll just see how it goes. But my goal is to treat my ambulance here like it's a new car that I don't want to even ding a tiny bit. That's the only way I can hope to get my ambulance to survive for this ridiculous 12 levels of paramedic here with the Colombian cartel shooting at me. All right, so in this video, I'm going to rant about paramedic because my goodness, it is just so fundamentally broken. And I don't know what the programmers were thinking, like to put this mission in and have it be broken in so many ways. And it would have been trivial for the programmers to fix paramedic and make it not broken. But they just made so many mistakes as they were programming and making decisions about how paramedic would work. And so now in this video, I'm going to rant about those mistakes and also try to give constructive feedback here to the programmers who are watching this video. If they want to make some changes in the, I don't know, maybe they could do another release of the definitive edition and fix this stupid paramedic thing, then I'm going to offer some suggestions for how they could easily fix paramedic and make it not the worst mission in GTA 3. And even some people have said mission in the GTA universe. So here is what I have to say about fixing broken paramedic. So first fix, could have had checkpoints. They had checkpoints in one or two of the other paramedics in different GTA games, and having checkpoints here would make it so you don't have to start paramedic over. Would instantly make the mission not broken. Maybe they could have checkpoints at levels 3 and 6 and 9, so that if you fail after any one of those, like let's say you fail on level 8, then you could just restart paramedic level 6 at the checkpoint. Even having a single checkpoint, like let's say at the end of level 8, finish level 8 all in a row, 1 through 8, then your progress is saved at that point. So if you fail on level 11 or level 12, you can just restart from the beginning of level 9. Like you don't ever have to do the first 8 levels over and over again because it's just so time consuming and it doesn't make sense to keep doing the easier levels, right? Where like your ambulance has full health and there aren't as many patients to pick up and maybe they're near the hospital. Like it makes no sense to keep getting good practice on the easy levels and then just run out of time or have an ambulance that gets destroyed the later levels and then have to start over every single time from level 1. Having checkpoints or even a single checkpoint would immediately fix paramedic and make it not broken. Okay, so now I'm going to go through the 6 fail states. I thought I had like 7 in the last video, but anyway, I've got 6 on my list in front of me. And for each of the fail states, I'm going to propose a fix, a solution, or I'm going to say, hey, Rockstar doesn't need to change this. This is fine the way it works right now. Okay, so fail state number 1. The player could cancel the mission by hitting the mission start, mission end button, or the player could exit the ambulance. So, all right, I've never accidentally canceled, paramedic. It's the numlock key on my keyboard. But I have accidentally gotten out of my ambulance by hitting the F key, which is right next to the D key. And the D key is the one that I use to turn right. And so how could they fix it? Well, they could make it so that if you get out of your ambulance during paramedic, you don't instantly end paramedic and have to start over at level 1. Instead, they could give the player 60 seconds to get back into an ambulance and then just continue paramedic right where they were. Not talking checkpoints here. I'm just saying make it so you can get out of your ambulance and have like a 60-second cushion before failing the mission. It's programmed into GTA 3 exactly that way for Vigilante. I've talked about this a couple of times, I think, where if you're on Vigilante and you get out of the police car, you'll get a message at the bottom of the screen that says, hey, you have 60 seconds to get back into a police vehicle. So not only does that prevent you from accidentally, driving through this this curvy road here just makes my heart rate elevate like it's crazy. It's so dangerous, and I'm smacking into limos here. I thought about bailing on this particular run actually because I thought I gotten so much damage here very early on in the 12 levels. But I stuck with it. We'll see how it goes. But I was concerned that it was just kind of a waste of time because my ambulance was so damaged even at this early stage. Okay, so letting the person get out of the ambulance and then have 60 seconds to get back in an ambulance, not only would it prevent the devastating accidental get out of the ambulance because you accidentally hit the F button instead of the D button, um, but also it would make it so that you could change ambulances. You know, like if you've driven a couple hundred feet away from the fixed spawn of the particular ambulance at the hospital you're starting from, then another ambulance will spawn there. And so you could take your damaged ambulance, you could be in the middle of paramedic, you know, in the middle of a, you know, level three or whatever, and then your ambulance is pretty damaged. And so as you're dropping patients off in the blue circle here, you drop them off, and then you can see there's an ambulance right here to my right, and you just hop out, and the game says you have 60 seconds to get back in the ambulance, and you hop into the fresh ambulance, and you continue right on, continuing with the level that you were on. And that would instantly fix the main difficulty, which is that the ambulance gets down to 0 HP. Like that's the problem. I think time, you know, not having enough time to complete everything is a major problem. But the most significant problem is for me is having an ambulance that doesn't lose all of its HP before we get to level 12. So I think that would fix, you know, like it wouldn't fix everything, but I think it would make it so paramedic was not broken. Just make it so that you have 60 seconds to get back into an ambulance, including a fresh ambulance. Okay, fail state number 2 out of 6 is to get busted. Getting busted while on any mission should fail the player. I actually don't think that anything needs to be changed in terms of this. I think it's fine for you to have to start over if you get busted. I mean, it's a shame, but I would rarely get busted in paramedic. I think in all of my 9 hours of failing paramedic here on Shoreside Vale, I didn't get busted once. It's easy enough to stay out of trouble with the law, and there's also bribe stars around if you ever end up with two wanted stars. I don't think I ever did, even in all my attempts here on Shoreside. I think I just would get 1 star and it would disappear after I was a good boy and committed no crimes for like a minute. Okay, fail state number 3 out of 6 is to get wasted. All right, I got no complaints about this one. If you die while you're on paramedic, yeah, okay, you got to start over. But that happened pretty infrequently too. I mean, you saw my one fail that I showed at the beginning of this video where I accidentally drove into the water. And so, like, I got no solution to that. Like, I deserve to start over after driving to the water. Okay, fail state 4 out of 6. The patient dies. This is a tough one to fix. Like if a patient dies, in some sense, you have you have done the fundamentally worst thing you could do as a paramedic, right? Like as an EMT driving this vehicle is to kill the patient. So it's a tough one to fix. I think that the player should fail if a single patient dies. Having checkpoints, like if they put a checkpoint, if you complete level 8, would make it so that accidentally squishing a patient on level 11 wouldn't be as heartbreaking because you just pick right up after level 8, starting on level 9 every time. Also, the ambulance has a very long stopping distance, which leads to, accidentally. Oh, here's the shortcut that I picked up. I think this was key in me making more progress, is that shortcut right there, being able to get to this road without going all the way along the road that's now parallel to this one left. Um, so the ambulance has a really long stopping distance, especially if it's raining or if you're driving on grass. And so, until you get a lot of skill of driving the ambulance and understanding the nuances of stopping distance as it relates to your current speed and as it relates to rain or grass, yeah, you're going to squish some patience. So I think that's kind of on the player to like just be really cautious. In my first video in this series of 4 in a row on paramedic, I said that you should make sure that you stop very far away and don't get, within like 10 feet of the patient because you don't want to accidentally slide into them and have to start over. Okay, so if players have larger time bonuses, and I'm going to rant about the time in just a few minutes in this video, but if players had more generous time bonuses, then they could drive more slowly and not have to feel like they're rushing during part of the time, which I think would reduce the number of accidental patient deaths. So I think that the time is not healthy enough. The time bonuses are typically not enough. And so like fixing the time bonuses would therefore have a positive impact on, the pain of having to start over because a patient dies because you were rushing and you accidentally squished them, in your haste to get to them or close to them or whatever. Occasionally, a drunk driver kills a patient. I call them drunk drivers. I think that's what the community calls them. The drivers that don't follow the road, they don't stay in their lane, they ignore traffic lights, they drive in the lanes of oncoming traffic. It's pretty rare in my experience to have a drunk driver run over one of my patients and kill them. So I don't know that that's something that I would say, hey, Rockstar, you should fix this if you're going to fix paramedic. Okay, so now we get into the last two fail states, and these are the ones where my rants are going to be much more. So the final two fail states that I'm going to talk about here are running out of time and the ambulance running out of health and catching on fire. Again, driving on this curvy road, just oh my goodness, so sketchy, so sketchy. Okay, so let's first talk about time running out and how Rockstar could fix this. So on shoreside, the starting time that you're given when you begin like paramedic, like on level one or maybe even level two, can be totally unfair, straight up unfair. Because if you're on level one and the patient is in Wichita Gardens, or maybe you're on level two or three and all the patients are in Wichita Gardens or really far away, um, I'm pretty sure that the bonus time and also the starting time on any level is based on the straight line distance between where you are when you start the level, which is probably the hospital, and where the closest patient is to you. But the straight line distance doesn't mean anything when you're on shoreside. I think here I paused. I don't know, like making notes to myself for things I could rant about while I made the commentary here. Um, so the straight line distance is straight up bogus. Like it is not a good measure of how long it takes to go pick up a patient because if they're in Wichita Gardens, straight line distance is, like let's say the straight line distance is like a mile, but you might have to drive 3 miles in the game to get to Wichita Gardens because you got to go like way, which way here? Like way to the east and then way to the south and then way to the west just to, do this big, like three parts of a loop, like three parts of a rectangle maybe because the shoreside Vale is disconnected in so many ways. There's so few connections between like where the hospital is in Pike Creek and Wichita Gardens, and so you could end up like I ended up with some fails that I don't even think I showed here because the patient, like I'd start off and it would say, hey, you have 40 seconds, and I would drive in the direction of the airport and realize the patient was in Wichita Gardens, and it's just not possible to get there in the 40 seconds. So totally unfair. I understand why the programmers maybe use straight line distance because it's like really easy to calculate that and program that in, right? Like you remember the distance formula from back in school, distance between 2 points, big old square root x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. But that is not the right metric, not the right way to measure how much time is appropriate to start a given level. I think it'd be harder to program in like the minimum road distance to get from the hospital to Wichita Gardens, but I think it could have been done. I think they could have just said, hey, if all these patients are in Wichita Gardens, then we're going to give them 2.5 minutes. Like there's just forget using the straight line distance if everybody's in Wichita Gardens. Okay, additionally, shoreside is unfair in that it can be impossible to tell which section of the map a given patient is in since you can't expand the minimap, and parts of shoreside are really time consuming to get to. Um, and so, like starting in Vice City, the mini map is expandable. And maybe if the mini map was expandable here in GTA 3, like I wouldn't have a rant because like it'd be easy enough to like click on the mini map at the start of each level and come up with a plan for who you're going to pick up first and how you're going to group these patients in groups of three. And if there's an odd patient or two left over after you've done your groups of three, which ones are they going to be? You can make much better decisions. Like it's easy to make good decisions. You have the information. But the mini map, this is really like me railing against the mini map. Here I got really confused. I was like, I've never seen a patient in the tunnel, but I couldn't tell if maybe there was somebody down there in the tunnel. So big, big time loss heading down there to the tunnel to find out that no, they're straight up above me. But this is what I'm talking about. Like when you have something like Shoreside Vale, and to a lesser extent Staunton Island, where one road is directly above another road, it can be impossible to tell which road of those two choices the patient is on. And this is not an issue in Portland because, as far as I could tell, there's no road that goes on top of other roads, like maybe Callahan Bridge, but I've never seen a patient on Callahan Bridge during Portland paramedic. So really problematic. The fact that there's a mini map that isn't clickable, and you just have to make a plan based on not enough information sometimes. And you can think a patient is maybe over by the airport, and it turns out they're in Wichita Gardens, and it's just a big fat time loss heading to the airport to discover that they were in Wichita Gardens. So one of the things that helped me get better at paramedic in Shoreside Bail, even though I just showed you like a video clip of me failing like 20 times in shoreside bail, is is coming up with the idea that maybe, okay, if I can see that there are folks over in the airport region, maybe I start each level by, I have to back up here to give this person room. So maybe I start each level with a trip to the airport, and I pick up, one, two, or three people over near the airport or on the way to the airport. And while I'm in the airport, then I can get a sense from the mini map of how many folks are staying in Wichita Gardens. And that's information that I don't know how to get from the hospital, like at the start of a level. Like I feel like I need to make the trip to the airport, and that helps me do a little bit of advanced planning for the tough, longer trip to Shoreside Vale for the given level. Okay, I do find the time bonuses in Staunton to be quite ample, often at a minute or more per patient. The time bonuses on Shoreside can be ample, but they're frequently not sufficient. You often don't have time to pick up a faraway patient in Shoreside as the first patient of the level, which means you got to typically grab the first patient at the airport or in Pikes Creek, and therefore the time bonuses are much less than they would be if you could pick somebody up that's far away. So I'd say that picking up at the airport, like my time bonuses probably average like 35, 40 seconds, something like that. And that may or may not be enough to complete the rest of the level. Really depends on how spread out the rest of the patients are, and whether or not you can group a bunch of patients, three patients together kind of efficiently. The time bonuses in Portland are often insufficient unless you know that you should pick up a faraway patient as the first patient of each level. And I don't think that that should be required. I like for the casual gamer to like have to figure that out. I mean, it took me like 16 hours of failing when I first started playing GTA 3, failing paramedic in Portland. It took me like 16 hours of failing before I understood this thing about the time bonus, and that I should pick the first person up on each level should be far away. And then I had time bonuses that were generally sufficient. But I've seen a lot of advice, and I mentioned this in the first video in this series of ambulance or paramedic videos. I've seen a lot of advice online that says pick up three patients real quick that are close to the hospital. But like that might give you a time bonus of like 19 seconds or 17 seconds or 16 seconds. It's like, yeah, you get three of them, but then the time bonuses for the rest of that level are going to be, 16 seconds. And so I don't think it's fair that you should have to figure out to pick up somebody far away. But if you pick somebody up far away in Portland, if you know to do that as the first patient on each level, then I think the time bonuses are okay. They're generally sufficient in Portland. Um, but I would suggest if Rockstar wanted to fix paramedic, that they multiply the time bonuses by 1.5 or even by two. Like I would consider that to be fair if they could multiply the time bonuses by 1.5. So here, I've got a 42-second time bonus, so make it like 63 seconds instead of 42. Just multiply by 1.5, or even double if they want to be kind to the gamer. Um, yeah. So the current time bonuses, I would say, are quite insufficient, and gamers often have to rush, which leads to worse driving and accidentally squishing of patients or damaging or rolling of the ambulance. So the time factors, the time bonus is just one. It's one of the very broken features of paramedic. Okay, so that's what I have to say about time. So now let's talk about something. Uh, let's see. Let's talk about the ambulance being destroyed as my last part of this rant here. Okay, so this is one of the biggest reasons that paramedic is broken in GTA 3. The ambulances are just way too easy to destroy. I understand that they made the ambulances top heavy and difficult to control because they wanted to reflect the reality of the physics of driving a real life ambulance. But I think they went overboard, way overboard, and made the ambulances far too easy to roll. Clipping something as small as a thin street sign or turning hard when you're going fast, just turning, not even hitting anything, or braking hard when you're going fast can send you careening out of control and into an unrecoverable roll of the ambulance. And so many folks, myself included, have lost many paramedic runs because the ambulance is just too hard to control. Okay, let's now rail about the Colombian cartel. The Colombian cartel shooting at us from the beginning of the game makes it way too tough to have your ambulance survive 12 levels of paramedic in Staunton and near impossible to survive 12 levels of paramedic in Shoreside. Now, I completed Staunton on my first attempt at it once I had a fresh ambulance, but I knew ahead of time that I should be avoiding the 4 blocks right around the construction site. But I don't know that it's fair for for Rockstar to expect that the casual gamer, uh, is going to know. Okay, you have to do your best to avoid these spots around the construction site. And then some of the spots are like underneath girders. It's easy for a patient to spawn right inside of that kind of section, and then you have to like wake them up and then lure them out, get them to slowly walk up the sidewalk and follow your ambulance out of the kind of scaffolding area. Meanwhile, the cartel is just shooting you up all over the place. So I think that it's very difficult in Staunton and near impossible in Shoreside to have your ambulance survive for 12 levels. This could be fixed by not making the Colombians shoot at you until late in the game, but I'm not sure how to make that work on Shoreside since there's only one story mission on Shoreside. So like I appreciate that like cartel should be shooting at you like from the beginning, but I still think that like I, I think that they could have fixed this. Even with the cartel shooting at you, they could have made it so the Colombians, they could have made it different. They could have made the Colombians shoot at you, but not make paramedic broken. So here's how. Many of the Colombians are carrying Uzis, which is the drive-by weapon. That's the one pictured in the yellow box there on the top right of my screen. And I calculated, and you saw, I think, in the last video, that it takes about 37 hits with an Uzi to reduce a fresh ambulance with full HP down to 0 HP. And that's assuming no other damage to the ambulance. So 37 hits. And in a few minutes, I'm going to illustrate here in this commentary that it takes at least 40 trips of dropping patients off at the hospital to complete 12 levels. Like over the course of the 12 levels, you start at the hospital, you go out, you pick up one patient, you come back. That's one trip. Then you go out, you pick up 2 patients, and you come back. That's 2 trips. So I'm going to illustrate that it takes at least 40 trips to complete 12 levels of paramedic. So suppose that on Shoreside, 1/3 of those trips require you to travel along roads where Colombians spawn. I think that's a reasonable estimate based on my experience with all the spawns in Shoreside Vale and even like behind the mansions on that main road. So that's about 13 times you'd need to travel along Colombian roads, like doing 40 trips, and then about a third of them being requiring you to travel on Colombian roads. So about 13, and possibly up to double that number if you take the same road back on the return trip. So if you take just 3 bullets to your ambulance on each of your 13 trips going through dangerous Colombian territory, your ambulance will catch fire. Again, if you take just 3 bullets on each of your 13 trips to and from Wichita Gardens, your ambulance catches fire. And it's not uncommon for a single Colombian to get in 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 hits. And you're trying to make sure you take less than 3 hits. And that's assuming your ambulance isn't damaged for any of the other many reasons. Like right there, I got a little bit of damage to my ambulance because I got hit by that Colombian cruiser. So one fix would be to dramatically increase the HP of a fresh ambulance. I'll give more details on this in a minute. But alternatively, they could make the Colombians maybe 25% as accurate as they currently are, just so that you don't get hit as often. Another option would be to give the Colombian cartel much weaker guns, like the pistols, the revolvers, instead of the Uzis, so that the ambulance could take maybe 100 hits to catch fire instead of 37. I just think that their weapons are too strong, and that is combined with the HP of the ambulance being too low. And like I said, the 37 strikes from Colombian artillery assumes you don't have any fender benders or more significant crashes reducing the HP of your ambulance, which means you got to drive like perfectly for like an hour because that's how long it takes. It's crazy. It's all crazy. Okay, so Let's continue. So here's the kind of final part of the rant. The ambulances have way too little HP. There are so many ways. Gosh, my notes here are so big that my one Excel cell can't hold it. All right, hang on one second. I gotta expand something so I can read everything that I wrote. Does that do it? Okay, there we go. Okay, and let's try one last time. Okay, I think we got it. All right, so the ambulances have way too little HP. There's so many ways to lose HP, like clipping light poles or hitting cars, many of whom turn directly into your path, some of whom drive like they're drunk and don't obey traffic lights or even stay in the lanes going in the direction they're traveling. You lose HP by getting shot at by the Colombian cartel. More on this in a minute. The fact that there's no checkpoints means you need to survive for 12 levels in a single ambulance that is getting routinely damaged during those 12 levels. If you could pay and spray an ambulance to restore it to full health, this rant would go away because you could just, like you could do paramedic. It wouldn't be broken. If you could get out of your ambulance during paramedic and then just continue paramedic in a fresh ambulance, like you can in Vigilante, where you change police cars in the middle of doing Vigilante, then paramedic wouldn't be broken. If there were checkpoints, even a single checkpoint at the end of level 8, then you could finish paramedic in a fresh ambulance and paramedic wouldn't be broken. The Rockstar just made so many, like if they just changed any one of these decisions, they could have fixed this mission. And instead, they just made the wrong decision so many consecutive times, and it led to this like monstrosity of a mission. All right, so um, one other thing that I wish that they would do was make the HP visible to you. I mentioned this in the last video, so that like you could see your HP starts at 100 or whatever, and then you take a hit and it's down at 95, and then you get shot and it's down to like 82, and maybe you decide, okay, I'm so early in the 12 levels of paramedic, there's no way that I can survive with this ambulance. It's down to like 4 HP, and I've got another 2 full levels to do. I can't survive, or maybe you got 8 levels left to do, and you just decide to bail out and start over. Like it wouldn't make it any easier to complete paramedic, but it would make it so that you wouldn't waste so much time with an ambulance that has so little HP that there's no chance you can complete it. But you don't know that because the HP isn't shown. All right, so I'm going to assume, just for the calculations that are coming up here, that the HP of a fresh ambulance is 100, just making up a nice easy number. I think that changing the ambulance so that the HP starts at 500 would be fair. Literally 500 from 100. I don't even think doubling it is good enough. I think 500. I'll explain. I failed paramedic in shoreside more times than I care to count, almost always because my ambulance caught fire from having no HP remaining. I would regularly complete level 8 and have my ambulance catch on fire during level 9. Occasionally I finished level 9, rarely finished level 10. In my first 7 hours of attempts, I never finished level 11, but you did see that I was super close. I got my first level 11 done and almost level 12 in the last video. Okay, if you always take patients to the hospital 3 at a time, and then maybe if there's 1 or 2 stragglers left over because it wasn't a multiple of 3, the number of patients, then you make one final trip to the hospital with the 1 or 2 patients that are remaining. Then it will take you 40 trips dropping patients off at the hospital. So on level 1, it's 1 patient, that's 1 trip to pick them up and bring them back. On level 2, it's 2 patients, that's still 1 trip. On level 3, 3 patients, that's still 1 trip. But on level 4, you got to make 2 trips, right? Because you can't fit all 4 folks into one ambulance ride. Level 5 is 2 trips. Level 6 is 2 trips. Then you get to level 7, and now level 7 requires at least 3 trips to the hospital because you can take a group of 3 and another group of 3 and then 1 final patient. That's your 3rd trip to the hospital. All the way up to levels 10, 11, and 12, each of which require at least 4 trips to the hospital. So if you add those numbers up, the number of trips, 111, 222, 333, and 444, you get 40 trips to the hospital, dropping patients off, and that's optimal. In shoreside, if I complete level 8, then I have made 15 trips to the hospital. And then I maybe make 1 or 2 more trips before catching fire on level 9. But I need to survive 40 trips to complete all 12 levels. Like I'm saying, like I got to level 8 and completed it a bunch of times during my failures and then failed on level 9. I wasn't even close, even though it feels like, oh, he was on level 9 out of 12, he's close. It's like, no, not even close. I was only 15 or maybe 16 trips out of 40 and I caught fire. It's not even halfway. So 15 trips out of 40 is 37.5% of the trips done before my ambulance got to 0 HP. So for me to have an ambulance that just barely survives 40 trips, then the HP of a fresh ambulance needs to be about 40 divided by 15 times what the current HP is. Again, 15 trips out of 40 before I caught fire, we need to go 40 over 15. That's the multiplier for the current HP to make it so that I just barely can survive level 12 and 40 trips. So 40 divided by 15, that's 2.7. So I propose 2.7 times the oh, I think are we at regular speed now? Looks like it. This must be level 12. I think I decided to show all of level 12 at regular speed. Okay, so 2.7 times the current HP for the ambulance would make me barely survive dying at the end of like somewhere in level 9. So if we assume an ambulance HP of 100 starting off, like a fresh ambulance, then I would need to have that changed to 2.7 times 100 or 270 HP for me to barely be able to complete paramedic. But I've got maybe 50 hours in paramedic to date, and I don't think I'm like the casual gamer that Rockstar should be aiming towards in terms of making paramedic passable. People shouldn't need to put in 50 hours to get good enough to just barely complete this thing that's required to get 100% completion. Okay, so I don't think 270 is sufficient. I'd propose roughly doubling that number and starting all ambulances with 500 HP. That's how I came up with the 500. Like 270 would barely make me pass it, and let's double it to give the casual gamers a chance to pass it. I also did some experiments off video to estimate how many glancing blows an ambulance can survive and how many full speed head on collisions an ambulance can survive. So for the glancing blows, I was traveling about 5 miles an hour and I just kept kind of careening into a wall at roughly a 45-degree angle. And I just counted how many times it took to do that for a fresh ambulance to catch fire. And it was 47. So we'll call it about 50 times 50 minor fender benders to catch fire from a fresh ambulance. So if I'm assuming an ambulance has a starting HP of 100, then each minor blow takes about 2 HP away. And then I did head on, like traveling full speed into a wall. And there it took only 8 hits to catch fire from a fresh ambulance. And so head on collisions, if it's 8 times that it takes you to lose 100 HP, we'll call that about 12 HP lost for every head on collision. So definitely you want to avoid the head on collisions anytime you can. The glancing blows are like a sixth, roughly a sixth of the damage that you take from a head-on collision at full speed. Okay, and as I mentioned, about 37 shots from a Colombian cartel Uzi to catch fire. So that's again about if it's 100 HP down to 0 after 37 shots, that's about 3 HP per bullet. So to pass paramedic, currently you need to survive 12 levels, 78 patients, 40 trips to the hospital at least, with fewer than some combination of 47 glancing blows or 8 head-on collisions or 37 bullets from the Colombian cartel Uzi. Like there's a lot of combinations of those that will, and I experienced so many of them in my 9 hours of failure. And I propose that's just too much to ask of a gamer, not just a casual gamer, but me. I'm dedicated to passing this thing on shoreside bail. It's too much to ask of me. I would just wonder, did the programmers did they test paramedic on shoreside bail? Did any of them even try? And if they tried, did they pass it? Like I can't imagine they did. Like they shouldn't have released it when it was so broken in this way, and it would have been trivial. Like they could just change one line of code to give the ambulance 500 HP instead of 100. One line of code, and it's fixed. Like it's fine. It's reasonable. I understand challenge, but they went way overboard here. Okay, so I am going to give a rating for the difficulty of paramedic on each island, assuming you do paramedic as soon as each island is unlocked. So not waiting until after the mafia is mad at you on Portland Island, that first island, but if you do it as soon as you can. So I'm going to say that 1 means that paramedic is trivial for the casual gamer, and 10 means that paramedic is impossible for the casual gamer. So I'm going to give Portland a 6. It is definitely not trivial, but it is doable if you have some knowledge and then you learn how to, how to operate the whatchamacallit, the ambulance, like learn how to control the ambulance. So 6 out of 10. 10 is impossible again. So 6 is my score for Portland. It's I don't think it's fair. I still think it's broken on Portland, but it's doable if you're willing to put in the time and the work. On Staunton, it's true the time bonuses are generally better, but if you don't know to avoid the construction roads, like the 4 roads going around the construction site, and one of the roads that I avoided is the most natural. It's the first road you could take when you're leaving the hospital at the start of each level. Like the one that is just going straight south from the hospital parking lot is a road that is lethal to your hospital. It's infested with Colombian cartel. So quite unnatural to skip that road for the entire paramedic. So again, scale of 1 to 10. Now, Staunton paramedic for me gets an 8. 10 is impossible. And I gave Portland a 6. Staunton gets an 8. And then finally here on Shoreside, 10 is impossible. I'm giving Shoreside a 9.9. It is not impossible because I've seen videos of two people doing the entire thing on YouTube. And now, spoilers, you're watching another video of a successful Shoreside Vale attempt. But 9.9, darn near impossible on Shoreside Vale. Way broken, like just ridiculous. And another problem, I think I mentioned this, but like a lot of folks, their approach to these kind of 100% completion tasks is like to do all the story mission stuff first and then do all the extra stuff after. But that makes it like really crazy hard because if you have got the mafia mad at you, then Portland goes from like a 6 out of 10 to maybe another 9. I don't know. I mentioned I might try doing a paramedic in Portland, like late. Not it's not going to be an early. I won't do it anytime soon. I'll do like all the story mission stuff before I even consider trying to do that over in Portland. But like it's like a 6 in Portland. But if you wait until you've done all the story missions because you didn't know that that would make it impossible, then it might be like a 9.9 in Portland. So I completed my Portland paramedic successful run in 34 minutes. And then I completed my Staunton successful run in 1 hour, 8 minutes. And here you are seeing me complete my first and hopefully last ever successful shoreside run at basically 1 hour on the dot. 1 hour on the dot. And I was just so close to giving up on a number of different occasions. But here we are with the lights flashing and celebrating. And there was part of me that like almost hit the F key to get out just because I've been trapped in this, ambulance for like 10 hours in the last couple of days. I'm just rolling it because I don't care about this ambulance anymore. I think I'm going to smack it into the wall because it doesn't matter. Hope it catches on fire. Um, but yeah, I came very close to giving up on this kind of arbitrary goal that I had set for myself. There is a way to glitch your ambulance so that there's no hit detection, which would make it so that you don't have to worry about getting shot by the Colombian cartel. I might show that off in a later video down the road, but I'm thrilled that we got there for you. So I hope this was entertaining and enjoyable, and I promise no more paramedic stuff for a while. We'll do something totally different in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.